You'll have to forgive me. I woke up yesterday with a little bit of laryngitis. And my wife sometimes says that that's the only thing that can shut me up. God bless her. Anyway, from the book of wisdom this morning, we hear, "For the reasoning of mortals is worthless, and our designs are likely to fail. For a perishable body weighs down the soul, and this earthly tent burdens the thoughtful mind. What is at hand we find with labor." Wow, seems like I'm not the only one that's having a bad day. This reader was, or this writer was for sure. But, these words apply to life itself, to our lives. Our plans can go terribly awry sometimes. Our bodies go before our spirits. We often have to work hard to make even minimal amounts of progress in our life. So with this in mind, the readings for this week raise a question in my mind. What is this life all about? Now, I expect many of you have asked that same question, probably many times. So what are we to do? Personally, I have this prayer that I say, and I sometimes wear it out. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This prayer is called the Serenity Prayer. It's well known, possibly trite to some people, but it shows us the essence of humility. Be who you are, nothing more, nothing less. Trust in God for everything, especially those things you cannot do. So there's our first answer. Life here on earth, even though weighed down, is about humility. Father Brian spoke about it last week in his homily. We can't solve all the world's problems by ourselves. We can't be everything to everybody. It doesn't work. C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Let go. Let God do his work. And in doing this, we put things in their proper order. We are who we are, and God is who God is. The second answer is love. Real, toiling, sweating love. Look at what Paul says in the second reading. We're reading a personal letter, one he wrote to Philemon. And it turns out that Philemon's slave, Onesimus, ran away from him and went to visit Paul in prison. Paul converted him to Christianity and then sent him back to Philemon, no longer a slave, but a free person, a beloved brother. Listen to the language Paul uses. I am sending him, that is, my own heart, back to you. Onesimus is not a slave anymore. Paul is sending someone so dear to him that he refers to the man as his own heart. That is true personal love. And it's what life here on earth is all about. It's about loving the other more than we love ourselves. And truly loving someone sometimes requires a great deal of humility. And the third answer, as the gospel tells us, is to get our priorities straight. Get our priorities straight. Jesus said, when anyone comes to me and does not hate his mother, his father, his spouse, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, he cannot be my disciples. Now these may sound horrible, but let's look at them. Let's examine them. It appears that Jesus is outlining the conditions for discipleship. Jesus said these things when he's on his way to Jerusalem. He's on his way to the cross. He knows that he's going to die. So when Jesus tells us to hate our nearest and dearest, he does not mean that literally. He means that no love can compare with the love he has for us and the love we must bear for him. We must love Jesus above all other things. Jesus is calling us to be humble, to have things in the right order, to let us be human, and to let him be our God and our Savior. The call of Jesus must be obeyed above every other call. With this reprioritizing of our lives, we can more correctly understand the challenging passage of our gospel. The word hate is probably just a rhetorical way of saying, love them in proportion. Love them in proportion. If you let the love of God be first in your life, your beloved family will follow right along with that. Renounce all your possessions. If you are tempted to love material things more than you love God, then renounce them. Renounce them. God must be the first love in your life. You need to love God above everything else and to love other things in proportion. And why are we supposed to carry a cross? Why? Well, because it is far too easy for us to pretend that the world is an easy place to live in, that there is no suffering, that there is no pain, that nobody actually suffers. But every one of us here today knows that that's not true. People suffer, and they suffer in a big way. So taking up our cross just helps us to go out and help others to carry theirs. And that's the real and final answer to the problems presented in the first reading. What's life here about on earth? It's about being humble, it's about loving others truly, and about loving God above everything else. If you know these things in your hearts and live them, you are truly blessed. Jesus did not promise us luxury and comfort. He did not promise that life would be easy if we follow him. He told us that we will encounter difficulties when we work in his vineyard. But if we are to be followers and disciples of Jesus, we must expect difficulties. We must carry our crosses and follow him. Perhaps then today we should probably look at our lives. Be willing to suffer for Christ's sake and to price Christ above everything else and everybody else in our lives. That is true discipleship, dear friends. And as Jesus says to his disciples in the gospel this morning, whoever of you does not give up all their possessions cannot be my disciple.